I'm Dr. Heather Moore, owner of Total Performance Physical Therapy. Tonight we're going to go over how to fix shin splints. Currently we are at the time of the year where there's marathons, half marathons going on. It's weather perfect for running right now, so a lot of people are out there. Mileage is really ramping up, so shin splints are starting to creep up. So we're going to go over a couple things you can do to fix shin splints. One of the things you have to understand about shin splints is it's not really in your shin. It's not coming from your shin. And if you just treat your shin, you're not going to get better. And you might put a couple Band-Aids on it, and it might feel better for a little bit, but unless you actually address the issue on why you're getting these shin splints, you're really not going to be able to fix them for good. And they may come back right in the middle of the race, and you may not be able to finish it. So let's go over some of the quick fixes people like to do. Change your shoes. Absolutely one thing that you can do in order to help shin splints is to get a new pair of shoes. If you have a shoe that is broken down, you should be able to keep track of your mileage on your shoes. You should be keeping track of your mileage on your shoes. So you want to replace them and make sure those are up to date. But again, not going to necessarily be the reason that you have shin splints. You want to make sure that you do have a current pair of shoes that will help you. But again, if you change your shoes and you're like, oh great, I don't have shin splints anymore, you kind of just taking care of a little bit of the problem, but not really solved the problem. So you treated a little bit of the pain, but you didn't solve the problem. So, but as always, it's really important that you keep up with your running shoes, every few 100 miles. And really, everyone says, oh, there's a magic number. There's not. I have a magic number. I know how far I can go in my running shoes. It's not what everybody else does in their running shoes. So, find that space where you really feel that your body starts to break down because your shoes are breaking down. It's not uncommon for people to go beyond 300 miles or, people wear them out at 100 miles. It really depends on your running pattern, how often you run, how fast you run, where you run, and so on and so forth. So I know everyone wants to give them their magic number and say, okay, at 150 miles you replace your shoes. Not the case. There's some guidelines out there as to when you think you should, but honestly, I know the minute my shoes have gone too far, I start to get knee pain and pain. I start to get back knee pain just because my shoes are a little bit over. I've correlated the two. I know I can just put on a new pair of shoes and I'm good. So just watch the mileage on your shoes. Find out when everything starts to become cranky. It won't just be one thing. You won't just get shin splints. You'll come back from a run and your ankle and your knee and your hip and everything will be sore. That's a sign that it's time for a new pair of shoes. So a couple of stretches that you can do, they're great. You should be able to do some stretches. You should be doing some stretches, but they're not going to solve your shin splints. Shin splints are usually coming from a breakdown up in your hip area. So a lot of runners don't like to do any core work. They don't like to do any strength training because they like to just go out and run. That's the main thing. But if you suffer from shin splints, you really need to make sure that you are, in fact, training a lot of your hip muscles, a lot of your core muscles, so you can run without those shin splints. You can run without slapping your foot. A lot of times that's going to cause the shin splints. A lot of times guarding your foot with your foot is going to cause shin splints. So a couple of exercises you're going to do in order to help with that is you're going to strengthen some of the outside hip. So what you can do is you can just stand here on one foot and you're going to just drop your hip down and bring it back up. Nice and easy, all right? Now, it's not bent, okay? You're not bending straight your knee and trying to get the most range of motion that you can. The knee actually is going to stay a little bit bent, but the knee doesn't move, all right? And then you're just going to down and up nice and easy, okay? You want to do about 30 of these. You're going to feel the burn in this leg. This leg doesn't feel anything. You may not get this much range of motion either. I practice this a lot, okay? We do this a lot in the clinic. So you may only be here the first time. You may not be moving at all. That's okay. Start where you're comfortable with. And then go into something more with a greater range of motion. So as you feel comfortable. If you get pain with that, just start with a single leg balance. That's another great exercise you can do because it's going to strengthen your hips. Start with single leg balance. If you're really good at just standing on one foot, close your eyes. Okay? If you're really good at that, put a pillow underneath your foot and close your eyes. That's going to strengthen the hip, knee, and ankle complex. That's going to help you run a little bit without having that pain. You can't stand here for a good 30 seconds without, falling over or doing one of these or having to have your arms out like that. You have some significant muscle imbalances in your leg, and you want to make sure that you correct those. That's part of the reason that you're having those shin splints is because you're having some hip weakness and you're having some weakness that's translating down into the foot. So second thing you can do is single leg balance. Again, You start here, you hold this 30 seconds, this is comfortable, you start closing your eyes, that's comfortable, you put a pillow underneath your foot, close your eyes. You can do that when you're brushing your teeth, you can do that a couple times in the day. You don't have to just stop and be like, all right, I have to do my single leg balance now. Find things throughout the day that you're going to do it for, and that'll make it easier. So when you're brushing your teeth, is a perfect time to practice single leg balance. All right, do not fall over like I just did. You should be able to hold it 30 seconds. Eyes open, eyes closed, it doesn't matter. If not, there is an issue with your hip, knee, and core complex that you need to address, probably causing those shin splints. So I glossed over stretches. Stretches are definitely a way that you can help to strengthen, stretch out those shin splints. It's not going to solve the problem, okay? So just be aware that what I'm going to show you is going to help alleviate a little bit of the pain, but it's not going to solve the pain. You want to start doing hip and core strengthening exercises in order to alleviate pain. But to help kind of take the edge off, the first stretch you can do is, if you have your sneaker on, you can do it with your sneaker, although it's much better without your sneaker. And all you're going to do is take my shoe off, tuck your toes under, okay? And then you're going to feel a stretch coming up the front of your foot. You may not feel it in your shin, but maybe feel it right in here. That's where the stretch is, okay? If you do this, you don't feel anything, you can bend this knee a little bit further, all right? And then you could get a stretch. You're going to feel a nice stretch up in the front of your shin, up in the front of your foot. Wherever you feel that stretch, you want to hold that 30 seconds, and you want to do about 6 of those, okay? The second thing you can do for your shin splints, and if this is if they're not that flared up, is you can actually start to strengthen your shins a little bit. And if you don't have shin splints and you're not doing this, this is a good exercise to do, just to tap your toe, all right? So just nice and easy. Shin splints are there because there's a muscle imbalance. There's a muscle imbalance between the front and the back. There's a muscle imbalance up in the hip, things like that. So tap your toe. Tap your toe nice and easy for a minute. I will almost promise you, most of you by the end of the minute are going to be like, this is burning a lot, okay? So if you are suffering from acute shin splints, meaning like you do this once and you're like, oh my gosh, it's on fire, not the exercise to do. But if you find that you only get shin irritation or you have the shin splint pain when you run, start doing this. Again, you're doing this at your desk. This is not really a formal exercise program that you need to stop and do. You just want to make sure that you're doing, toe taps a minute here, a minute there. Guarantee you after a minute it's going to be burning. And the next exercise you can do to fix your shin splints is just hip abduction. So this is kind of the easiest way to do it, where you're just going to balance on one leg and kick your leg out to the side. Now you can tie a band around your legs and make it a little bit harder, okay? The main thing is you don't want to have your hip come up and forward, okay? You want to make sure that your hip's going back. You want to try and make sure that as you're doing this exercise, you're balancing on this leg. You're not coming here and then resting, and then doing this and then resting, and then this and then resting. That's really defeating the purpose. You're going to balance on the one leg, and nice and slow, you're just going to bring that other leg back, okay? About 30 repetitions on each side. Because it's not weighted, you can do about 2 or 3 sets of those, nice and easy. Again, this one you're probably going to feel it working on both hips. When you go out and in, you can lay down on your side and do this on your side. But again, even if you're laying on your side, you want to make sure that your hip is coming back, okay, and up and down, and you're not doing this, and your hips aren't rolling forward. A lot of strength coming from the quads when you roll back and you allow your hip to come forward, or you allow your leg to come forward, and you're not actually working the correct muscles. So those are just a couple of things that you can do to actually fix the shin splint, treat the cause of the problem, and not just treat the pain, which a lot of people like to do. They like to put on half sleeves or tape, and that'll help take the edge off, but it's not going to fix anything. You want to make sure that you really get to the root of the cause of the compensation.